Hi everybody. How do you maintain personal and professional boundaries in nursing? Let's talk about it. I'm Stacy, I'm a registered nurse, and I would love to share my journey with you. If you're new here, thanks for coming in. If you're coming back, I'm so glad to have you. If you like what you see here, then I ask that you like, subscribe, and follow for more. And if you want other people to know about the things that we talk about here, I'd love if you shared a video. And I do read all of your comments and I appreciate each and every one of you. But let's talk about personal and professional boundaries as a nurse with your coworkers. I've talked about personal and professional boundaries as a nurse with your patients. That's a given, right? We understand that there are going to be personal and professional boundaries with the people that we give care to. But as a nurse and with your coworkers, I think it's really important that you establish a work boundary and a personal boundary. If you're going to be friends outside of work, how does that impact your professional relationship? It's sometimes very hard to be friends with someone and maintain a professional relationship, especially if someone is in leadership and someone is not. That becomes a challenge. Or, maintaining personal and professional boundaries as level coworkers too, because sometimes we know things about our coworkers, right? We know things about people that we work with that we shouldn't be sharing at work. It's not anybody else's business at work. And if you know something that could be detrimental to your team, it's a challenge not to share that information, right? Now you feel like you're being put in a spot to either stand up for your company or stand up for your friend. And I choose friendship. I do, because what my friends say to me off of the clock is nobody's business that I work with on the clock. And if you allow people to utilize your personal life in your work, they will. They will take this information from you and they will use it against your coworkers. And I think that it's really important that when you have privileged information about somebody that you work with, that you keep that to yourself. That's just my opinion. Now, if I know that my friend is doing something harmful to patients, for example, I feel that that crosses a line of personal and professional boundaries. So if I have this information, then obviously if I know something is happening that I have to report, I am a mandated reporter. So then it becomes a thing of, what do you share with your friends that you work with? What kinds of things are safe topics to discuss? Because the fact of the matter is, anything that you say can be used against you, right? It's really important to build good relationships, healthy friendships, but there has to be a separation, I feel, from what you do at work and what you do as friends. And it has to be established in your friendship that you would not ever tolerate behaviors that would endanger patients. You would never agree to keep that to yourself. But beyond that, what a person chooses in their life, maybe they're looking for another job, maybe they are, reporting the manager for something that they feel the manager was not right in. It is not your place to go and share that information with your coworkers. Or maybe somebody has another job and this is your friend. Having that kind of privileged information is privileged information. And for a coworker to expect you to want to share that information, I feel is wrong. I feel that we have to have a clean boundary of what is work and what is friendship outside of work. Because when we're in work, we're doing professional things, and that's really maybe not the time to talk about personal stuff, right? When we're in work, we probably should be focused on professional commentary and professional conversations, and what we discuss outside of work should never enter into the job. This is my personal opinion. I've worked with friends, and it has been sometimes a very positive experience working with friends, and I've worked with friends and it became a negative experience and the friendship did not survive the working relationship. Especially when you're in a leadership position, I think it's challenging if you have information that could be detrimental to your team. Say you're in a leadership position and you know that somebody's looking for another job. You know that you're going to have to replace that person, right? And it's a challenge to separate that out sometimes. You want to share that with your team if you have that knowledge, but that is privileged information. And I think there's a line. And I think that it's important that when you have a friend outside of work that you work with, that you share with them, hey, anything that you say to me that could be detrimental to work, or harmful to a patient, I would not be able to keep that between us. Or your bosses know your friends outside of work, and you say, this is privileged information between me and my friend outside of work. And then that puts you at risk to be a target at work, right? It feels awful. It feels awful to be in that position, and I don't think that a company should put an employee in that position. And I've been in that position, and I've seen other people in that position, and it's not a good feeling. It's not a good feeling when you feel like your work could be in jeopardy based on your friendship with your friend. And then too, sometimes we learn what kind of people really are. I mean, sometimes just because somebody's your friend at work, outside of work, doesn't mean that you guys have the same work ethic. It doesn't mean that you have the same standards for what work would be, right? So we have to be able to separate the two. And that's a big challenge. How do you do that? How have you done that? Have you ever experienced a time whenever you worked with someone and you had information that you knew could be harmful? How did you handle that situation? Because for me, it feels like a betrayal if I know something about someone that I care about and I have to present that to someone I work with. Some things, are not important. Some things you know about your friends and they're not important to your job or the job that you do. And so you don't have to risk anything. But I know when I've stepped into leadership positions, I have separated myself from things like group chats and things of that nature, just because it felt uncomfortable to me all of a sudden to be part of those chats where they might be saying something that they wouldn't say otherwise. That they would be saying to each other as coworkers. And if I'm in a position of leadership, I may have information that I can't share with my friends outside of work. When you are in a position of leadership, you have information sometimes that is not shareable. You can't give that information to your friends just because they're your friends. You still have an obligation to remain professional and do your job professionally and also not betray your company, right? So I think that's a really delicate balance when you're friends outside of work with the people that you work with. I think it's a delicate balance, and sometimes it's hard to figure out what that line is. But I would say that if you have a friend that you're close with, that you establish those boundaries when you're working together. Hey, I have to share things that I would know might be dangerous. So if you don't want me to share that, then maybe don't tell me. And sometimes that can be hard on a friendship, right? Because you want to be able to tell your friends everything, but sometimes knowing everything and telling everything, it makes it challenging. So I would challenge you to think about that. Think about what your hard boundaries are, and think about how to balance those two things. And I would love to hear suggestions on this subject. I currently am not in that kind of situation, but have been in that situation in the past, and I just really try to avoid those types of situations now. But I would love to hear about it in the comments. And if you like what you see here, then I ask that you like, subscribe, and follow for more. And if you think other people would be interested in hearing it too, I would love it if you shared it with other people so that it can reach more people. If I reach just one person and I make a difference, then that's really my goal. So I thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.